Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. You know, when celebrities or politicians say or do dumb things and it winds up on social media, then it comes back to bite them years later. Well, it happens to business people. It happens to all kinds of people. And while it may feel like the end of the world, Ray Hennessey is here to tell you it is not. In his book, Beyond Sorry, How to Own Up, Make Good, and Move Forward After a Crisis. No surprise you own your own PR firm, Ray.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started primarily as a journalist for about 25 years and then switched over to public relations and marketing in 2016.
You were a journalist for?
Dow Jones. I worked for Smart Money Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, in television at the Fox Business Network, CNBC. I did national financial media, both on air and in print for that time. So I had a column in the Wall Street Journal on the IPO market for a long time. So
that's great. Good for you. Yeah. And you're still at it. So what made you decide in the middle of all this, write a book?
I had part of doing kind of the public relations work and involved a lot of crisis communications for folks. And it occurred to me that the best part about that work is that people had really, really screwed up badly, but you could come back from it. And this was around the time when there was a lot of talk about like cancel culture and things like that, and people's careers being ruined, and social media making everything more heightened.
Yeah, you make a comment 10 years ago, and
right. So, and the fact is that with social media, things that were once private became public. So you could go through a divorce, or have some sort of like infidelity in your marriage, or you could lose your job somewhere. Suddenly everyone knows about it because all of this stuff is on social media. So it wasn't just like a professional issue, like where like something could happen in your professional life. Your personal life is kind of magnified too. And so that got me thinking, like, well, do people really, when they mess up, because, humans mess up, are they really done? Like, is there a way back from a lot of these problems that they've gotten themselves into? And it all came down, as I thought about it, to really how sorry you were about things. And so I started thinking about, well, okay, if somebody's truly sorry, what's the best way to fix it so that you can get past it and reclaim your reputation? And that was the genesis for the book.
How many celebrities have we seen just get slammed for a comment that might have been, I don't know, made when they were 20 years old? It's like you got to consider when comments were made and why comments were made, and the psychological and mental issues that were going on at the time, and the maturity level, right?
Right. Well, the good news is we're a country of second chances. And so people have to recognize that you do get another shot at it. Listen, people love to tear you down. They love to revel in the bad, but then the same people love to cheer you back on and welcome you again. And we often forget that. So the same people, who you mentioned celebrities, same people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this person did it. He's done. He's done, right? A new album comes out and they buy it, right? So we tend to like, it's not just short attention span, which we have, but it's also this idea that we do love to take out the pitchforks and the torches and yell at people and tear them down, but we love a comeback story even more. And once you understand that that's the way the public works, it's it should be heartening to you to know that there's a path back, but it really comes down to owning what you did, not running away from it. So really accepting that you did something wrong, owning it, not trying to blame someone else, not trying to deny it, but really, really owning what you did, because that's what people want to see. And then it's figuring out how you're going to make good. So when there's so much research on what makes an effective apology, and depending on what you look, there's either like 10 elements or 5 elements or 6, but they all have 2 things in common. One is that ownership element. One is that you've understood that what you did was wrong, and you're taking responsibility for it. And the second is this offer for repair. Like, what are you going to do to fix it? So if you can own something and then make good, and show that you're going to try to repair the relationships, repair the harm that you did. In general, people, they may not forgive you. Forgiveness is a gift that you should never expect, but they will move on and move forward from it. And so that's really what you have to do, is you've really got to examine your conscience. You really got to say, okay, well, what drove me to this? How can I own it? And then, live a life that shows that you've learned your lesson, and people, people will move on. We see this, I think, in a lot of like personal relationships, right? Where I think we've all known like couples that have gone through marital problems, right? And it's generally infidelity or something like that. And what happens is people they move forward from it, right? They may never forgive one another for what happened, like, deeply, but they find a way to make it work so that they stay together and they have a, very fine, stable relationship afterwards. That works in any kind of reputational crisis. It's the same thing. Like, people will always remember something that you did wrong, but they find a way to move on from it.
Well, also, you find when couples go through something that they sometimes get through it and manage to move on, and the friends that they sought advice from or sympathy from, they haven't moved on, and they're like, you should have left that guy.
Right. Isn't it so funny, because they don't go through the journey, right? They don't, I have been in those situations where I've been sort of like the friend of one side of a couple that's gotten back together after, spending like a year bad mouthing the other
right.
person, right? And then all of a sudden it's, oh, well, this is the love of my life and we're together. And it just drives you nuts. But then you've got to step back and say, well, it's not my life, right?
Right.
I mean, this is this person's life, and if there is a journey and that journey led to some sort of reconciliation between the two of them, well, that's great. I talk a lot in the book about religion too, because like the framework for apology really comes down to like the fact that most major religions are based on, okay, we've done something wrong. Is that sort of the end of the world? Are we like damned forever? And all the major religions have some sort of process recognizing that humans are flawed and that you can come back from it. And so, even if you're don't like have any sort of faith system or any kind of belief system, you do generally think that there's room for forgiveness and reconciliation, provided people do the right thing. And I think that's kind of the beauty that we often forget when we're going through a crisis, whether personal or professional.
So true. Now, what are your plans for this book? Is this a book that you give to clients? Is this
I've already gotten a crisis client directly as the result of the book. And it's funny, a friend of a friend had given it to this person who's fairly prominent, actually, who had gotten into trouble a couple of years ago and read it and came to us to kind of help with like reclaiming the reputation. I think what I want out of the book is to give people hope that, in these moments where they think their career is over in particular, that there are many, many pathways to come out and start over. I have a fairly robust LinkedIn community, and I've done a lot of different media around some of the themes in the book. I've been asked by media when there's been like a scandal. Just recently, I was quoted by somebody over like the Eric Adams thing in New York City. His indictment, the mayor.
Is he going to come back from that?
And you know what? Like, I used to think that you couldn't come back from something. It used to be that you got indicted and that was it, right?
Right.
But, when you look at politics now, you look at Trump, right? Trump has made his own legal issues, which, 10 years ago would have been completely disqualifying, maybe 20 years ago, into something that actually gets him more votes, right?
Right.
You had, starting with, I guess, Bill Clinton back in the mid 90s.
Yep.
You've had this view of, these legal problems or these big controversies that, it would have killed somebody in politics before, but rather people have been able to come back from. So it doesn't matter the party or the person, or in a lot of cases, the circumstances. These folks hold on instead of doing what, used to be common, which is the minute that the accusations came out and they were credible enough to be indicted or charged, they would simply resign and deal with it personally. And then when that was resolved, they would come back.
Right.
So it used to be like, it's easy to say, oh, well, he's toast, right? He's done. He's going to, but you can't say that anymore.
No, he's digging his heels in. He is digging in.
Right.
Yep.
Right. You might as well fight to the end if that's all you have left. And I think that's the situation that he's in.
It's interesting though. So you're getting asked to comment because you were on the media. You had a column in New York, so it would make sense that you're being called on to comment, and that's how people are finding out about your book. And there you go. Now you can generate that into sales.
Yep. Yeah.
And not just sales. I mean, you're offering some great. I don't know how many books there are out there like this. I'm sure you did your research.
There aren't a lot. And I mean, the trick is, people don't think that they need to know how to apologize until they're in a crisis. Right. So it's one of those things. It's sort of like, the book itself has I think the problem of being one of those, like, in case of emergency, break glass kind of books. Right. That people don't want to have on their bookshelf necessarily, because it sort of suggests that they've been in trouble before. But at the same time, like it is, it is something that applies to so many aspects of our life. I started writing it strictly from the standpoint of, professional crisis, right? Something that was going to hurt your career. And then it occurred to me that, nowadays, personal crises can hurt your career too. Like, you've seen so many of these, videos of people doing something in their private lives, like they yell at someone in the street. And what's the first thing that happens on social media? They identify the person, then they identify the employer, and then they tag the employer and say, do you know this crazy woman's working for you? And like it balloons. And so, I actually think that everybody should have this, because at some point, everyone is going to have to apologize for something that they did wrong, because we're human and we all screw up.
Absolutely. Good thing you wrote the book. But maybe you never do anything wrong.
No,
right?
Well, you know what? I mean, it's funny. Like, I never thought, as I'm writing it, it was interesting when I was taking all the research I was doing. So I looked into psychology, and I mentioned religion, but I looked into art, and literature, and things like that. And as I'm doing it, it always came back to what I had done wrong in my life. Like things I had screwed up at work, or things I had screwed up with relationships, things I had screwed up with friends, things like that. And like, you always come back to it and you say, my God, like, I wish I had known then that I should have done it this way, or thought about it this way. And there's been times when I've thought, like, okay, I'm dead in the water, because we all get in those like really low, dark places. But it's interesting being able to look back and think about that, and then recognize that there's this beauty in being able to grow with the comeback.
You going to keep writing, or what? You got a follow up to this?
Oh, I don't know. Everyone asks me that. I don't know what the follow up is, but I'm open to it. I'm sure it's going to at some point reveal itself to me. But yeah, I will keep writing. I do think I've got another book or two in me. It's just figuring out the right audience and the right message.
All right. I really enjoyed this, right?
Thank you so much.
Alice Gage was an engineer for GM for over 30 years before she got the idea for her first children's book entitled A Car for Grandma. And this isn't just any car. Now, writing hasn't always been something you wanted to do, right?
No, as a matter of fact, English was always my worst language. I was always the math geek, the person who could do the problem that the teacher couldn't in high school and even in college.
Oh, geez.
I got in an argument in college over this answer that was in the book. And the guy says, the right answers are in the book. I says, no, it isn't. So he did it in class. And the wrong answer, of course, was in the book. So.
Oh, well, good for you. That's one for you, Alice. I mean, it's one thing to start writing. It's another to publish a book. How did all this happen?
I have lupus, which occurs when your body's immune system kind of breaks down and the tissues and organs. It's called an autoimmune disease. And because children, get sick so easy, my children do not want my 4 grandchildren to come visit me at all, because then I would get sick from, how kids get sick really quick.
Yeah.
And then the COVID made everybody stay home for 2 years. And I was just devastated. I couldn't babysit the kids, hug them, or kiss them. So I had to do something, with my time. So I wrote the book, A Car for Grandma.
Is this based on a true story?
No, I'm an engineer to begin with. So it is possible, and my son's an engineer, and my oldest daughter's a veterinarian, and my other daughter's a structural geologist. So quite a bit.
Oh, my God.
Especially the structural geologist. She's always going ahead and saying that how, us terrible engineers are destroying the earth, which in a lot of ways is true. And, with EVs, electric vehicles, even though you have an electric vehicle, you got to plug it in. So you're using electricity. And then the battery in an electric vehicle is like 10 times the battery that's in a gas vehicle. So you got to do something with it, the battery. After like 10 years, you got to replace it. When you replace it, you're causing, more problems, because you're going to have this big vat of dead batteries. Okay. So.
And nowhere to put them. Same thing with the rods with nuclear plants. Nuclear energy is very efficient, but they don't know what to do with the rods.
Exactly.
Right?
What do they do with, there's been so many nuclear submarines that have been decommissioned, and they're just sitting. They don't know how to take care of them.
Wow. Okay.
So that's one problem. And with my 3 children, you always talk about what's going on in the news or what's happening. And then solar panels are take a long time to warm up, but they're efficient. So if you could take a solar panel, like today, it's gorgeous outside in Michigan here. It's like 70 degrees. Let it sit out in the sun. The sun absorbs into the solar panels and creates electricity. So, and that's what's like your windmills too. The wind itself goes ahead, creates electricity. And that's why you don't have like DTE energy. They don't have to use as much coal.
Right. Right.
So if you had a car that was covered with solar panels and also had a windmill to be efficient, you could probably, move the car without using any gasoline.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So that's what I wanted. And then children are so much more open to new ideas than adults. When I worked for GM, you'd have an idea and there'd be 50 people, saying, oh, that ain't gonna work, that ain't gonna work, that ain't gonna work. So children are so pure, and the best age is like between like 3 and 6.
Yeah.
They're not going to school yet. They're not in a regiment to, get up at 6 o'clock or get up at 7 o'clock and stuff. And they come up with a lot of stuff if you just sit there and listen to them.
Yeah.
And also their children will go ahead and actually give them a bunch of toys. They'll figure out what they want to be. Like my second daughter, it was so funny. Her name's Joanne. She went ahead, and whenever we went to a drugstore, there was all these rocks, and you paid $1 for a bag, and you could fill the bag with rocks. Okay. And I didn't even think about it. And then she was ahead and she gets a degree in structural geology.
Oh, geez.
You know, I'm over the going. But I never stopped her. Every time we walked in and my husband goes, that's what we need, some more damn rocks. And I'm over there going, you know, it's just the way it was her thing to do. So,
that's funny. So what's the story? What, a story accompanies this amazing car.
Oh, the story is that the grandmother can't afford, we live in Dearborn, which a lot of people don't have a lot of income. And so the grandmother cannot afford the $7 a gallon for gas. Okay. And so she loves taking her grandchildren out to the beach. So the 4 grandchildren get together and, create a solar vehicle. So that way they can see grandma anytime they want. She can come over anytime she wants without paying for gas.
Oh, sweet. That is a very sweet book. And Alice, I think you could build that car.
Okay, be in my garage at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, why not? I'll be right over. I've got to get the next flight to Michigan.
Sure.
Now, I realize you have some health issues. So does that prevent you from taking your book out to schools or reading it at a library?
Pretty much, because of the lupus, and I just got a valve replaced in my heart. I'm 70 years old. I have to be very susceptible to germs. I'm washing my hands constantly.
Right.
So that kind of prevents me from going out in the public too much.
What about your kids, your wonderful kids?
Well, they go out, no problem. But they have their own lives to live too,
They can't read your book in a library somewhere?
Oh, well, we can have that happen. We'll see how things go. We'd have to figure that out and see if a library wants us to do a story time. I always took all 3 of my children to story time at the library every Saturday.
Right.
Reading is so important to kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how things go.
All right. Well, listen, feel good, Alice.
Thank you so much.
Get well and enjoy. Just enjoy life.
Thank you. You have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
True George says he does a lot of paperwork for the city of New York to figure out eligibility for public assistance. He's written 5 books, but Psych Ward Chronicles 2, The Support House Shenanigans, is his first for Page, and I'm assuming you work in a psych ward.
Well, I did a mental health counseling for my master's degree. Because I was gonna leave this job to do mental health counseling, but they start you off with peanuts. I mean, I had got responsibilities, and they're gonna give you money that's like daily entry for a college person coming out of college. I can't live off that money, so I wasn't able to leave the job to do that full time. So I'm doing it part time on the weekends. So I did do my internship in a psychiatric hospital, Staten Island, South Beach Psychiatric Center in Staten Island. So I signed on to this company. They do a support house for the mentally ill. So what we do is we give make sure that those who's in the residence, they have to sign something saying that they agree to have the medication managed by the company, and we just make sure that the medication compliant. And if they have any issues navigating life and whatnot, we help them out administratively.
Okay.
Right. Other than that, they're free to do whatever they want, but they can't have overnight guests.
Everybody wasn't well behaved, I'm assuming, from reading your synopsis.
Of course not, man. This is dealing with the mentally ill people. They never well behaved.
Well, what are some of the things that you talk about in your book?
Some of the stories is a combination of 2 or 3 events that happen independently. One of the biggest things that happen is the first chapter called Barricade. Person comes in intoxicated, whether he was taking drugs or drinking. Wasn't too sure what he did, but he comes in, he's cursing out everybody, to the point that the police was called. And when the police showed up, he runs in his room the police was knocking on the door, telling him to come out, and he verbalizes he's going to kill himself, tell him to leave. So they call the sergeant. The sergeant comes in, and he's them throwing things around in his room, barricading him. They want him out. He refused to come out. So they decided, the police decided they want to break the door down. So they got the battering ram and start trying to break the door down, but the door is very sturdy. It's a metal door.
Oh.
And they couldn't. The only thing they did was dent it. So the sergeant called the police special unit. Okay. So they decided they're going to punch a hole in the wall and open the door from there. Put their hand in and open the door. But it was taking some time because it was pure concrete. And so a police lieutenant showed up, and he decided to cordon off the whole block.
Oh.
Yeah, he cordoned off the whole block, stationed people downstairs by the unit window, just in case he decides to jump out the window.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was like, they had a flash bang grenade ready for when they punch the hole in the wall. They go throw it in to stun him, so that they can open the door and he doesn't do anything to hurt them. But we say that can't happen. He go get messed up. So we had communication with him on the airphone, and we literally had to curse him out to tell him to stop playing games, because the police is not going to be playing games. And when they finally breach into the apartment,
right,
he's going to be messed up. You know what I'm saying? So, and you know what? He decides to listen to us. He opened the door.
Oh, jeez.
So,
why didn't he listen to you in the first place?
He was pissed off at the at his service coordinator. He was pissed off at the medication manager. You get in with the mentally ill. They don't make the rational decisions. You know what I'm saying? You see 4 or 5 cops, don't run because you're not going to get away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he, at all the places to run, he ran in his room. So there's no way out. Here's the funny part. With the mentally ill, they don't take them straight to police precinct and book them. They don't do that. They send them to the psychiatric emergency room. So what happened was, the police, after all that, they declined to arrest him. To them, it was probably a waste of time to pull him through the system because of his psychiatric problem. And the psych ward emergency room,
right,
they decided not to put him in inpatient for a while. So 2 hours later, he came back to the house. Everybody thought he was going to be gone for a couple of weeks. He came back in 2 hours.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. He made a statement. He shouted at the top of his lungs to everybody. I don't want to use the profanity that he used. It's like, yeah, we call him the Teflon Don, man.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I guess you have a bunch of stories like this?
Oh, yeah, that's all. Then we got the other one here. Some of it deals with abuse, Got some young guys that was into the program. And you had an older guy, he was there for a while, and he turned them out sexually. They was gay. The older guy was gay. These younger guys, I don't know what he said to them. They came in heterosexual, and now they're engaging in homosexual stuff.
Oh, boy.
And, yeah, so you got that kind of stuff going on. And then one other woman, older woman, and she was giving drugs, and when she's giving drugs, she just does all kinds of things. She opens up her doors, they go in there, they sexually abuse her, they take her food, they take her money and all that, and then she claims she doesn't know who did it, and she knows exactly who she did it, who she lets in the room.
This is
stuff.
happening in the room, in the place where they've gone for
Right.
shelter.
Exactly.
Well,
And this is just one of many. Yeah. So it's kind of hard because it's a process to get rid of them. Because the staff is like they have to do things within the confines of the law,
Right.
and a lot of times this is what I found strange when I was doing the internship in the psychiatric hospital, that the patient has to agree to the treatment.
Mm.
If they don't agree to the treatment, then the psychiatric hospital has to get a court order to give their medication involuntary.
So you wrote a blog about what was going on
Yeah.
in this psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
And people started following you, which I can understand that because New York City has a big problem with homeless people, and most of them are mentally ill. And they wonder, why aren't they taken off the streets? Why isn't there a place for them to go? Their families have given up on them. But do you have any suggestions? I mean, what do we do?
Well, they're doing what they can. But they got the programs like the support house I wrote about. That's one of many. You know, what I wrote about could be happening at any support house.
Do people know you've written this book?
Oh yeah.
And
friends know that.
Yeah, but are you able to go out and talk about it? Because couldn't you get in a lot of trouble?
Oh, okay. Well, that's where we have the counseling code of conduct.
Okay.
Some of those people that I'm talking about, they've since left the support house, so they're no longer in the support house.
So you can talk about them.
I can talk about them. I'm not using their names. I'm using, aliases that I made up. The situation that took place is exactly how it happened.
Do you give us any suggestions? What can we do? What can the city do? Or is there nothing we can do?
Well, there's not much that the city can do because, like I said, a lot of the treatment has to be done voluntarily. Like I was saying before, somebody comes in the psychiatric hospital and they're given meds to stabilize them. They have to voluntarily take it. They don't take it. They say, I don't want it. It's not like the old days. They will throw them in a straitjacket, put them in a room, and just shove the medication down their throats. They can't do that anymore. So now they have to go and get a court order. It's called treatment over objection. Now with the support house is different. If somebody refuses to take their meds, then you have an ACT team that's supposed to intervene. And if that doesn't work, then the next time an incident happens, they're taken into the psychiatric emergency room and is held there and until they stabilize.
Wow.
And it takes a while to happen.
Right. Are you going to keep writing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to keep writing. I try to write on different things too. I did a romance book, a toxic romance.
Oh, jeez.
I tried my hand at horror. It's like I would say soft horror, you know.
Okay. Soft horror.
Yeah, I could say that. And I even did a political thing.
I think your Psych Ward Chronicles could be considered horror stories.
For some. Yeah.
All right. True, George. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem.
Victor Urban decided it was time to share his parents' unique story in Urban Confessions to Be Forgiven, particularly the story of his father, who told Victor he played a role in World War II you might find hard to believe.
The main character in it is my father. He was a wonderful, loving man, and he had a lot of setbacks in life, one of which is he married my mother, and that was not a very good union.
So what happened?
My parents met up in England after World War II, And after the trials of Nuremberg, my dad, he was a translator and a witness at the trials of Nuremberg. And my dad used 6 languages, English, Polish, Italian, German, and Yiddish.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It really is. He lost it real fast, though. You know, he didn't keep using it when he came to the United States.
Right.
He forgot some of the languages, but Polish and English were his 2 main languages.
So your parents, not a great union, but they stayed together?
Yes, they did. Yep. My father was very strict Catholic, and he felt that is a horrible sin to not keep his marriage vows.
Okay, so you say your family went through some very dark times. What do you mean by that?
My dad had to do some things. He was an assassin. He was under orders of Winston Churchill to eliminate Mussolini and Hitler. And my dad was like an ambassador, so to say. He was a go-between Mussolini and Hitler. He had to take envelopes and deliver them to Hitler, and they had troop strength in it, and where troops are located at.
He was in Hitler's inner circle?
My dad got within 15 feet of Hitler. He was delivering a message to him. He got to be friends with Hermann Goering.
Oh, so was he an ambassador for Italy?
Yes. Yes, he was. Yeah, for Mussolini.
How did he get that job?
It had to be faith that hooked him up. Basically, they were at a bar. They overheard some comments being made about Mussolini and how he's overthrowing Italy and everything.
And they kind of engaged your father.
Yes, uh-huh.
And he ended up working as an ambassador for Mussolini, for Italy.
And he was in contact with Adolf Hitler and his men.
So he came within 15 feet of Adolf Hitler?
Yes, and he couldn't do a thing. See, my dad's method of killing was to break his neck. He said there would be no weapons. He said he would probably lose his life the minute he killed Hitler, but he said it would be worth sacrificing his life for the good.
That's how he justified killing people, was saying that it was for the greater good.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
That's incredible. So what happened? He's 15 feet from Adolf Hitler. What happens?
Well, my dad did get Mussolini. He got him in Milan, Italy. He told me, he says, I put a round right in him in Milan, Italy. And he said that was my proudest moment.
He killed Mussolini?
Yes, assassinated him.
What's your dad's name?
Jersey Urban.
Did you always know about your father's past?
No, I didn't. I didn't learn about it till just before he died.
How did he come to be an assassin? Do you go to school for that? I mean...
Oh, yes, definitely. He was like a Navy SEAL to England. He was Winston Churchill's hand-picked man.
Why would somebody think he would make a great assassin?
Because of his training and his heritage to Poland. You see, he was born in Poland, and we're descendants of Polish royalty. And my dad was brought up in a culture and everything where you were a top-notch soldier. And he was a marksman with a rifle. He was very good with his hands and hand-to-hand combat. And
they said, hey, would you be interested in becoming an assassin?
Not quite like that, but you're getting there.
You must have been floored when you found out what your dad did.
Yes, I was, very much so.
But it says when you Google who assassinated Mussolini, the name Walter Audisio, a communist partisan.
Yeah, I've heard of that. See, there's no proof of who exactly how Mussolini died. They know he died in Milan and he was shot, and that's all they can verify. And my dad left me this story.
That he shot Mussolini.
Yes. Mussolini he lost Italy, and he was headed for Switzerland. And there was only one road that would go through there. So my dad and his men, they basically had 24-hour surveillance on that road, and they knew that they'd get him sooner or later. And it took a while, but they finally got him.
Have you shared this information with anyone, scholars?
No, I haven't. I just wrote the book, and I left it in God's hands. What he wants done with the book is up to him. But I wrote it, I put it out there, it got published, and how he markets it, that I said, Lord, that's your prerogative.
What happened to your dad after he took out Mussolini?
It was right around D-Day, 1944-45. Winston Churchill recommended him to go to Nuremberg trials in Germany for the war crimes.
Okay.
And my dad was a witness and translator in those trials.
Your dad should be in the history books, I think.
That's what I always thought. See, my dad was a very humble man, That's something I wanted to get out there. That's another thing why I wrote the book, is that I kind of thought, too, history should know about my dad.
I would think there would be people that would want to investigate this.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Do you end the book with your family coming to the United States?
Yes, uh-huh.
And you were born here and the rest of your siblings?
Yes, I was the last one to be born. And I'm named after the true king of Italy, who was King Victor Henry Emmanuel.
Nice.
That's who I'm named after.
Confessions to be Forgiven is the name of your book. Why did you choose that title?
Because everybody needs to be forgiven. It is the most wonderful, wonderful gesture a human being can do to another human being, is to forgive him of a betrayal or error, and to love each other. As friends should love each other.
All right, Victor, thank you so much.
You betcha. Thank you so much. My wife's name is Alice, too.
How about that? She must be something else. All right.
When I read that on the computer, I said, well, who are we talking about now?
All right. Emmanuel Edouard has a PhD in comparative literature, and he taught kids with disabilities for many years, which is why he had to wait to publish his book, The Victimization of Public School Teachers in America.
Okay, listen, I wanted to write this book for a long time, but I was afraid for three reasons. One, I didn't want to criticize a system that is feeding me, that was giving me a paycheck. And so I was afraid to lose my job. So therefore, I stayed quiet. The second thing, I was raising a family, and that was important for me, to have a paycheck every month, to pay the bills and keep the kids in school and everything else.
Right.
Okay, that was more important, than writing about what I'm experiencing or seeing. And the second thing is I didn't have the money to publish the book, so my son, who is now a teacher in California, is the one that has helped me financing, this publication. I owe him that money anyway. So those are the reasons why, I stayed quiet. Okay, well, so it took a long time. The notes, the research has been done for a long time.
Yeah. So
it is not an autobiography. It's not my experience. It's the experience of all the teachers that I've met.
I'm sure. I mean, it's no secret that teachers in America are the most underappreciated, underpaid, undervalued.
I agree with you. I'm still suffering right now because now you see I'm a retired teacher. I'm living on 8 pills every day and 3 eye drops. So even the money that I've saved during those years, I'm spending it right now, paying co-paying. The drugs that I'm taking every day and the drops, which are very expensive for the eyes, because I almost lost my eyesight a few months ago.
Well, I mean, I thought that was one of the benefits of being a teacher. I know in New Jersey, when you retire, the benefits are pretty good.
Yes, no, that's true. It's true. That's true. That's the reason why, like, okay, I'm still alive, is because, like, okay, the benefits were really good. Okay, but because I taught in New York, I live in New Jersey, but I taught in New York, so I
Okay.
have to take the bus every morning. I left home at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to get to New York at 7 because I was teaching in the Bronx.
Well, you outline in your book all of the administrations from going back to Bush and even Obama, which people would be surprised that Obama wasn't more supportive of teachers.
But that's the truth. It wasn't that, okay. This is the reason why we need to talk openly and sincerely. Okay, it's one thing you get the political speech, and then you have, like, the reality. Okay, Obama was, well, like, obsessed about that the success of American children and international exams. So he wanted us to be, like, the best.
Mm-hmm.
That was his obsession. But he wasn't obsessed about the condition under which the teachers were working. They're two different things.
Right, and it hasn't gotten better since.
Oh, no, it hasn't gotten better at all. For example, I was a sub in Florida, and I suffered, like, humiliation, okay, verbal abuse. I get kicked, like, okay, many times. Okay, it's a whole set of things. But I didn't want to talk about those things because it wasn't, like, something that I want to share with the public, because I was getting a paycheck every month. And then that was, like, for me, important to have it.
So in your book,
Yes.
do you have suggestions as to how we can move forward?
Yes. Okay. The one of the things that we need to have an open dialogue. And we are getting worse and worse every day now. We're not talking to each other now. We're talking at each other now, and it's making it worse.
Right.
But we need to talk to each other and explore things and talk about what's going on and find a common solution.
Well, do you have any suggestions in your book?
Okay, I mentioned the fact that okay, it has to be an open dialogue. That's the only way we can do that, because if we don't, okay, accusing, pointing the finger, blaming, okay, this is what we've been doing. People are blaming each other. Administration is blaming the teacher, the administration. It's not going to solve the problem. The problem is sitting and look at it, because the government is saying we're putting a lot of millions, okay, billions in education in this country. We have the largest budget in education in the world. Yet we're number 36 in PISA. So we're not doing well as far as the results are concerned. But we're spending so much money, okay, in education. But the money is not going where it's supposed to go.
How do we rectify that situation?
Okay, by pointing out, like, okay, the failures of the system.
Go ahead. Give me an example.
For example, I'm teaching, okay, and we have rules and regulations. I travel from New Jersey to New York. I arrived during the winter. Because we have rule that says the school opens at 8 o'clock, I have to stay outside of the school in the snow and having my frozen feet before, okay, the door is open. Now, I'm a teacher. I'm a very honest person. I don't have, like, any background and everything else. Why can't, you allow the teacher to come in and get ready for the classroom? Why you have this rule that doesn't make sense at all? Okay, just because, like, rules are to be respected. So, in everything that we do, for example, the curriculum, you cannot deviate from the curriculum. I'm going to give you an example. I was teaching children from first grade. And my first day in classroom, I told them there are more than 3, okay, stages of matter, okay, liquid, gas, and solid. I said there are more than 10. And I showed them a movie. And then what we're watching the movie, this is Batman. And we were going through all that beautiful things and everything flying in the sky. And I tried to explain to them, okay, this is a form of matter. Okay, let's say the black hole is a form of matter. Okay, the sun, the burning sun, is a form of matter. So I was introducing those things. They kicked me out of the classroom because I was telling the kids there are more than 3 stages of matter. Because the rule says at that age you need to teach the kid 3, okay, types of matter:
Okay.
solid, liquid, and gas. The Chinese kid already know those things already. And so therefore, they're number one in the world.
And you got in trouble for teaching that?
I got in trouble for that, for just telling the kids that there are more than like look at 3 stages of matter.
All right, that's crazy. That's just crazy. Well, also I think testing is, teaching to tests is another problem.
Oh yes, that's the other
The
thing.
standardized tests. I mean, every teacher I know complains about the standardized tests.
Because the problem that we have is that, okay, you have a test. Okay, the test only tests the cognitive part of the kid, okay, the intelligence part of the kid. But we're not simply cognitive. We are sensual, we are emotional, we have all those different things that we need to do that. So you cannot have a final test at the end of the year to tell me this is what the kid has learned during the year. You have to do it informally throughout the year. Informally, okay, we got informal tests. So then you follow, okay, the rhythm, the development of the kid, because not all the kids learn the same way, because we are different. So as a result of that, at the end of the year, you give one test, and some of the kids pass the test, and all of them fail. And then we judge them on the function of the field. But when you sit with that kid alone, you find out the kid failed for other reasons. For example,
Right.
That particular day, the kid did not have breakfast.
Right.
And took the test. The kid that, for example, in the Bronx, sometimes the kids will come to school, they didn't sleep the night before because the police spend the whole night, okay, in the housing project.
Right.
Because there are drug dealers and all those good things and everything else. So the kid come to school the next day. If you as a teacher, you don't understand that and allow the kid to sleep, so how can the kid actually learn if the kid is falling asleep? Not because the kid wants to sleep, because the kid has the necessity to sleep.
Well, clearly there are different needs for different school districts, right?
You can apply it for the same thing that you applied in Mid-Manhattan, okay, to the Bronx. The kid from the Mid-Manhattan come with the parents, a driver, okay, well-fed, well-dressed, and everything else, smell good, excellent. Some of my kids did not take a bath for 3 days. I have to take care of that. I have to send them, okay, with the nurse to take a bath. I have to have T-shirt in my room in order to make them change like a T-shirt.
It's so sad, man. That is.
And we are the richest country on earth. The richest country on earth, and we have kids that comes to school without having breakfast.
Yeah. Well, a lot of schools also in New York City, they feed them breakfast.
Oh, they do give them breakfast. But what happened is those kids usually, okay, the one that is in the project will come to school late.
Right.
Because the mother couldn't care less anyway, so they would arrive late. So they would miss the breakfast time. Okay, so not because the school did not offer the breakfast. The school did, but for other circumstances, the child did not make it. So as a teacher, I have breakfast in my office, in my classroom, my closet, so that when those kids can miss that breakfast, I can give them something to eat, so that they don't spend the time thinking about what I'm going to eat, instead of listen to what I'm saying in the classroom.
Right. So Emmanuel, where do we go from here?
Okay, my hope is to get the book out there and for people to read it. Okay, that's the first thing. And then based on this, that will galvanize enough energy, okay, for people to begin to realize there is work to do. Okay, we need to be in action, to be engaged, okay, to change things. Things are not perfect, and they're not going to be perfect if I did what I did, remain silent. So we have to voice it. We have to let people know, okay, what's going on. That's the first thing. And then based on this, on the reactions, okay, we'll get the energy that we need to move forward. That's what my hope is.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck in getting that information out there.
Yeah, thank you for calling. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
You got it.
Okay.
No means yes to Kenneth Jason Garrett, who against all odds has published his first book, Sisters of Sin.
I've been writing since high school, but I never tried to do anything with it because my teachers told me that when I told them what I wanted to do, they said, "You're not smart enough to do that."
That's not nice.
Yeah, and then recently I just wrote my book and I told my friends about it, and then I said, I don't know if I'm going to pursue it or not. And one of my good friends said, "Yeah, but what if it's one of those things, man, when you're on your deathbed and you're thinking back, what if that would have been it?"
Yeah. So you would have looked back and said, I should have published that book. What made you decide to, despite what your teachers told you, to start writing?
I just thought I'm going to go with it and see what happens. I wanted to see it go through, and then with the technology, with everything, the technology there now, which is easier to publish a book now.
What inspired your book?
Stephen King. I'm a huge fan of Stephen King.
Okay, so what's it about?
It's about this girl. She gets killed, and when she gets killed, the boys that end up doing it, they go on to live their lives, but they're not nice people. And then when this young girl moves into the house that young girl was in, she starts communicating with her spiritually, trying to let her know who killed her so she can get justice. She wants them to know who killed her.
So I'm reading your synopsis, and it says that there's a young couple, and the name of your main character is?
Yeah, Demetrika.
Demetrika. And they move into a farmhouse.
Yes.
Tell me about what she finds when she moves into this farmhouse.
When she gets into the farmhouse, they discover a room painted shut, and they don't know why. And when they go down and talk to the salesman, and who was good friends with the family that lived there, he said that after their daughter died, he couldn't bear to see that room open, so he painted it shut to preserve it just the way it was.
Okay.
Dimitri, they end up opening the door up, and she makes it her room, and then that's how she's able to. Things start happening. So like the radio come on, it'll play a certain song, and then she'll hear Abigail, who's the girl that got killed. She starts talking to her and communicating with her.
This is in the farm town of Crexton.
Yes.
And Abigail evidently has something to do with the whole town. It's not just that there's something weird going on in the house. There's something weird going on in the whole town. Yeah,
because the people that are responsible for her death, they live in town, and they're not really nice people. They're doing more evil things, and it needs to be stopped.
What are they doing?
One of the characters, who's a preacher, he is like he drugs young girls that he has working for him. He drugs them and has his way with them, and then and some of them don't wake up, they end up dying, and he disposes their bodies and all that.
Oh.
And his buddies that are with him, they're high up in the food chain, so they can do whatever they want, and nobody can touch them.
And nobody knows what's going on. These young girls are disappearing, and nobody thinks that there might be something up.
Well, when they always take the bodies way somewhere else, and sometimes they make it look like an accident. Oh, they overdosed on drugs. It was their fault. And
okay.
And they have one of the young men that was there when Abigail got killed. He's a doctor in the coroner, so he can cover everything up.
Oh, okay.
And then one of the friends is a judge, so he can do whatever he wants. I mean, they can just do whatever they want, and it's just like there's like no hope for Abigail's justice.
Do you wrap this up in one book?
Yeah, well, not really. I actually got a sequel that I have a prequel that I'm really wanting to do, because it sheds more light on more of the characters that didn't get much time in this one. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to do in this book, but with work and time and everything, I got it down, and I thought, well, I'll just do it as it is, and I can always do a sequel to add more to it.
How long did it take you to write this book?
It took me, I would say, about 8 months.
How was your experience?
It was really good. Fulton Books was extremely, extremely good. I really liked them.
Good. Do people know you wrote this book?
Yes, they do. I got the promotional package, and they're promoting it as well.
Are you doing anything on your own?
Yeah, I'm doing stuff on Facebook and word of mouth among friends and stuff like that.
Feel like you're getting some interest?
Yeah, I got a lot of good feedback. My local bookstore in my hometown, Hoopson, they're carrying my book. I asked them, and they said they're carrying it for me.
Are they gonna let you do a book signing there?
Yeah, they will. They said whenever I felt like I was ready.
Well, good. Well, Ken, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.